Hey guys, Manga here, and in this video we're going to be going over how to draw bodies, specifically female body proportions, and just knowing what the sizes of each body part is with respect to other parts of the body. I feel this video on how to draw body proportions will be different from others because here we'll be exploring how to draw these things from the perspective of someone who draws comics. So I guess it will be more in tune for those who want to follow that path. And I'll leave links on how to read and how to get your hands on this book in the description. Published and serialized on Saturday AM. You can see some cool female characters here. You can see some poses. This is one of those back to the basic type videos, so we're not going to be going over too much detail. I feel like the muscles of the human body is a different video. Body proportions for female body with respect to different ages is a different video. Different poses, drawing from different angles, dynamic angles, that's a different video. So here we just want to do something basic. There are a lot of other videos that we will do that will still be on this topic on the human body, specifically female human bodies. But here we're just focusing on the anatomy and the size of certain parts of the body, specifically body proportions. Obviously, there are things that you can do with the body proportion that might not be realistic, be more stylistic. But here, again, we're just keeping it really basic, and we will explore all those ideas in future, more intermediate type videos. And as you can see with the page, I've separated them into several segments. Generally, if I drew the head over here, for an adult in this case, we will have like one head and the rest of the body would just be like anywhere from 6 to 8 more heads. In some cases, 6.5 or 7.5. It's really up to you, but whatever you choose, try to be as consistent as possible. One quick tip is when I'm drawing the head, let's say we're starting from here, so this is like the first one, and then second and third, you get the hang of it. When I put the head together, have a simple oval shape here. I always like to think of just the skeleton of the body, so that I'm just thinking of the pose and I'm not really focused on like the flesh or muscles or anything of that nature. Torso kind of be here. With a female, we're going to kind of put the whole hourglass thing. Again, in future videos, we can explore other body types. But here I'll go with a traditional basic thing, which is best for you guys to start with. I'm leaving room for the neck. In fact, we could just, well, I might as well just put in the neck where that's going to be. Over here, and in the upper area of the second segment, I'm kind of breaking in to put in like the torso or the rib cage area where you have the hourglass kind of go in and start coming out. Again, will also be in the upper area of the third segment, and you can have your hourglass. I can kind of just do that. Note to self that even in real life human beings, the bodies are different. Not all females have the same hip structure or waistline. Like it's completely up to you. You can have smaller hips or wider hips, thicker thighs, or thinner thighs, up to you. But here we're just gonna do something basic. So even though I'm kind of working with the hourglass going in and out at the upper part of the third, with time as you draw on and on, the goal is to not need all these guidelines to let you know where things go. Eventually, you'll be able to put 2 and 2 together by yourself. So here, what you can do is maybe you have the neck, put that together, and you can kind of have the hourglass thing happen much earlier, like literally as soon as the third part begins. And I'm just having straight lines. I'm just focusing on getting that overall shape of where things are going to be placed. But and towards the end, I'll kind of make the lines feel a little more organic. When you pick what you want to do for the character, just be consistent. And I want the bend to happen just a little after in the third. Just as soon as the third starts, just a little bit at the top. And then we'll come out. In fact, you can keep going down and then come out even further in the lower parts. Again, it's kind of up to you. And I can straighten this out a little more. We know we're going for 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's go for 6.5. Go for 6.5 and just be consistent there. So if it's 6.5 from here to here, we just go for the knees at the end of the 5th segment. So if that's the case, we kind of know the knees are going to be here. And I'll just put my circle. And I'm just using circles to show where the joints are going to be. Now I know where the knees are, kind of just connecting. And then here in the 4th, close to the top, Just connecting back. Maybe I want the hips to not go out too much. Actually, I'm gonna bring it down a little bit, because sometimes you can have situations where the hips come out a little more, or they kind of come in and then do another bump. Again, there are different body types out there. You just want to figure out what works, and you can also use real life references to put that together. Put in lines where it needs. Going to be, I think I want the lower part of the legs to stop at 6.5, and then I figure out the feet. Can go a little over. At this point, they're somewhere in between 6 3/4, because you can assume that where the camera is placed, we can kind of see the top of the feet a little bit. So that's why it looks like it's going beyond the 7th, but not really. One good way to connect things together is just figure out where the end is going to be, and usually with arms, forearm, elbow, wrist, all of that. I know the hand is going to end up, if it's just straightened out, it's going to end up a little below the waist. That's this area over here. It's going to be somewhere here. We can just put that. More detailed video on hands. I'll make another one, even though I already have a couple on my channel as well. But I'm just going to put something representing the hands over here. And in some cases, if you don't want to go in with detail like that, you can just put a box for now. And then work on the detail later. Because remember, we're kind of just putting together a skeleton, and I'll figure everything out later. I'm using that circle for the joints. I know that from here to here, the elbow will be somewhere in the middle. Just put that, and then we're just connecting. So how thick you want the character to be is something that will be you figure that out afterwards. Sometimes you kind of have to eyeball it and then just be consistent in whatever steps you took to get to that point. And I just know that the size of the head is usually anywhere from 6.5 or 7 or 7.5 the rest of the body. It's rarely ever 8. Usually that just depends if your character is not a regular character, because again, we're making a lot of assumptions here, assuming like the body type of this human being is normal, and like we're making a lot of assumptions. Now I can kind of just go around touching it up a little bit, make it feel more organic and less like a mannequin. The human body has a lot of bumps here and there for the muscles, and I don't want the character to be any thicker than they already are. There's going to be a little bump over here as it kind of comes down, and then you have the ankles. Then putting in the toes. I'm just having simple lines. The shape has already kind of done all the hard work for us, and I'm just kind of just putting lines, bumps, to, make it look more like toes. I try to stay away from lines that are just completely straight, and there's always some kind of curve in certain areas and a bump in certain areas. Sometimes some people will separate the big toe just a little more. It's completely up to you what you want to do. In some cases, you see a little bump of the bum from behind. We're all adults here. And then it kind of comes back down. Again, there's usually a lot of bumps around the body. It's never really like completely straight. Knee, bump here, straight, and then ankle. Kind of just following back down. Shoulder lines. These shoulder lines usually do like a V. At least from this camera angle, so it's like a V. Belly button, depends on how you want to do it. It's almost like some back muscles just connecting a little better. You have basically just segments to show where the muscle is going to be. But we figured out all the proportions. The hard part is kind of done. Now I'm just putting in some more touches to make everything look a little more organic For the breasts, depends on how you want to do it. Again, there are different shapes, different ways to go about this. It's completely up to you. Sometimes you can have like a little circle with more of a, almost like a, giving it an upside down head with more of a draw at the top, and another one over here. And depending on the clothing of the character, it could be pressed against each other a little more, or you get the gist. And they kind of connect. If I want to make it a little more organic, kind of connect that. Here in the hips, you're seeing a situation where the breasts have kind of covered most of that curve, that hourglass curve. So we're just mostly seeing it come out. But again, there's scenarios where we might see it a little more. Right? Or other scenarios where the curve happens lower or higher. It's really up to you. And it's just kind of like, you know, that's just rib cage. It depends on how low the rib cage is. Up to you. You guys can ask questions in the comments below, or you can also leave suggestions for old videos that you want me to update for this new kind of playlist that I'm putting together. We already did a video with a human face, so I'm not really using all the guidelines that I used there, but just a quick refresher course. Yeah, kind of use those lines to get things more accurate. Completely up to you. If you want to follow this, we went with head 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then kind of like 6 3/4, because the body kind of ends here. We're only seeing the feet kind of go even beyond 7 a little bit, just because of the camera angle where we're viewing this character, right? We're kind of viewing the character from, like, the eye line is somewhere in this area. Our eye line is somewhere in this area, so we get to see the top of the character's feet easier than we would see, say, the top of their head. But really, even though it looks like it passes 7, it's really around here where you kind of stop counting. So you could say 7, or you could say 6.5, and I think that's the sweet spot. 6.5 and 7 times the head is the size of the full body. When it comes to the size of the hand and things like that, okay, you want to be consistent. Maybe we should pull that down a little more. The elbow here, pull that down a little more. Then that's how you can kind of be accurate if you're maybe putting together a sheet of some kind. But the hand itself and legs and stuff like that, again, it varies from character to character. But here, if you want to go with this, it's kind of like 3/4 the head. Well, not 3/4 the head because it goes here. So let's just say half of a head, if you're just using here. And then the feet, also another thing that's kind of up to you. But you can kind of gauge from this point of view. You can say it's half from this point of view. And using this system where you have your made ruler on the side is how you can use to measure things. And the more you draw, especially your own characters over and over again, you're not going to need any of this stuff. Over time, you just kind of know like the back of your hand. Little things like how wide the shoulder should be. You should be able to kind of eyeball it as time goes on. But again, once you have this first basic drawing, you can kind of use it as a guide for your future illustrations. And just going off of that, see the head, it's almost like 3/4 the head this way, 3/4 of this on one side, and on the other side kind of forms the shoulder with a slight organic slant. Because again, most of these are not like straight lines. You can have them be like straight lines in the beginning when you're putting the illustration together, but the shoulder is more, you see, is like a bump or a little curve like that. So going over the shapes again, you kind of have your circle here, do a thing, blah blah blah. You kind of have this hourglass over here, hourglass. Sure. Have your breasts here. Have a little V over here. Knee. You could use straight lines if you wanted to use that. You have triangles for the most part over here. Then you can make it organic. If you just want to kind of see everything in shapes, if that helps you. You have these bumps over here to show like the calves. But again, when you're putting it together, you have your circles for the knees, and you can just use straight lines to connect them at first before you start figuring out all the bumps for your characters. Because even though these lines and these curves, right, they make it look more human and organic, it's not the same for everybody. Drawing the back, it's not that much different. You know, if you want to do that whole thing with the circle and blah, 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 I don't really need it right now. Just want to get the head shape and kind of start. The neck kind of begins here in a way, because now we're viewing it from the back. And the ear over there, same deal as before, but now we're just kind of seeing it from behind. And the ears from behind kind of have, you know, you have the lobe and all that, but they kind of do like this weird diamond shape. That's kind of ear from behind. Again, a more detailed video in the future to help explain that a little better. But you have the ear from behind. Do your little hourglass thing, cutting it in the third, upper third. And then you have your knees over here, because we've already kind of done the math to figure out what happens here. And then we know it ends somewhere there. And then you just put that, and eventually you go over it with lines to make it feel more organic. You want it to be identical to what's going on here. So there's a bump here, and then it takes another bump, and then it comes down. There's a little gap over here, but we kind of see bum. So it's going to be a little lower. You'll see what I mean a little bit. And the line kind of, the legs are kind of doing like you can kind of, overall, if you're just looking at the skeleton of it, it's kind of doing this in a little curve. It's not just straight. It's kind of coming inside and then doing a little curve. So you do that. You have some lines like this at the back of the knee. You do the bump. There's this bump for the cows. Ankles. These bones just to show the back. They don't have to be that detailed, but it's like you have this line that kind of just, you can give a line, just help you put everything in perspective over there. Showing like some of the bones in your back. Nothing too crazy. And then you have the hands. Again, I have the hands go somewhere here. You can just put a box. This character kind of has her legs a little more spread, so kind of reflect that or rein it in a little more. Don't be afraid to use the eraser where you see fit. So something was just looking a little off. And then you have a little bum over here somewhere. And then you just do a line. The back of the leg. If the arm is somewhere here, that's going to be in this space. Just using the box to represent that. Doing a straight line. You know, the elbow is going to be somewhere here. And then you make those connections again. And it's usually curves. It's never like straight up. You have your bumps in the forearm immediately after the elbow, and then they form the wrist. Again, more detailed video on hands. I'll do that. I'm just shading those to show that, they're a little further in. Kind of have a line somewhere here. Now it's a little off because the bum's supposed to be here, so it's low. Mine's a little lower than it should be. Again, just character consistency at this point. Now, if you put clothes over the character, none of that's going to matter anyways. So, how about I put a skirt? And that's all for this video, and it's at this point where you start to put the clothes on the characters. Because usually, before you kind of draw, especially if you're starting out, it's good practice to figure out the body first and think in layers. So you figure out the pose, figure out the skeleton, so you know the pose you've got that correctly, maybe just in shapes or just whatever skeleton, even if it's stick figures, you know what the pose is going to be. And then you start to put clothes on the character, start to refine things a little better, put like, you know, the character's face, hair, all that good stuff until it's actually finished. So that's kind of like what this stage is for, to help. It's almost drawing, figuring out the mannequin, and this is where you start to then slap on features of the character that make it a character. Earrings, a top, skirt, shoes, list goes on. So that's it for this video, guys. If you guys enjoyed the tutorial, please leave a like and subscribe so stay tuned each time I upload absolutely anything. You can also go read my book, Apple Black. The first chapter is free online, as well as reading the chapters that are on our Saturday AM app. You can check out our magazines. We're kind of like Shonen Jump. You guys are familiar with any of that. Anime and manga type series, Shonen series, Seinen series. Please download the app. The app is free. Get 2 free months of Skillshare. Watch my other videos, even the old ones, and the new ones. Hope you enjoyed. It's WHYTMANGA, and I'm out.